Have you ever heard of that mysterious phenomenon known as time slips? Have you ever experienced one? Do you even know what the hell I'm talking about? Well, I have been in the position to experience a time slip, not once, not twice, but 3 different times of my life. I'm Nefer Kefri, and today's video centers around the mysterious phenomena of time slips. As to what a time slip is, we only know from the people who have experienced an actual time slip. What occurs, basically, in a nutshell, is you're just going along your routine of that day or of that particular moment in time, when suddenly the atmosphere around you starts to become a little dense. Now, in my situation, all 3 time slips resulted in me having a little bit of a difficulty in breathing. It's almost like you're at a higher elevation, so there's less oxygen in the air. And you know how if you're going hiking up in the mountains, the higher you go, the more difficult it becomes to breathe. And if you're not used to it, it can really bother you. Well, a time slip experience is something similar to that. It's not as intense, but you do feel like there's a heaviness to the air, and it becomes a little difficult to breathe. Also, sometimes the lighting can change. I had the lighting change in 2 of my experiences, not all 3, but in 2 out of the 3. And what happened in each of those cases, it was a bright sunny sky. All 3 occurrences were during the summer of different years of my life. And the atmosphere started to feel heavy, and the bright sunny sky took on a somewhat overcast appearance. But the odd thing about that was there were no clouds and the sun was out. But it's like the overall hue, not just the feeling of the atmosphere, but the hue, the color of it altered, became somewhat murky. Kind of like if a fog is going to roll in, it was kind of that look, but without it being foggy. So the case I'm going to discuss with you today that I experienced was in 2019 when my husband and I went on a trip to New Orleans, Louisiana. And during our stay there, I had begged him to make an hour-long side trip to Darrow, Louisiana, because Humus House is located in Darrow. Humus House is a plantation Civil War era mansion that was purchased by Kevin Kelly, a New Orleans businessman who completely renovated and restored Humus House to its former glory. He took the additional steps of furnishing the entire home in Victorian era furniture and fixtures, which is what you would expect to see in Humus House at the time of the Civil War. The place is absolutely stunning. If you are ever in the area, I highly recommend a trip to Humus House. You will not be disappointed. Now, the reason I had wanted to go is because one of my all-time favorite movies, Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, which starred Bette Davis and Olivia de Havilland, was filmed at Humus House. The exterior shots were, and both actresses stayed at Humus House during the filming of the movie. So that's why we went, and plus the rumor is, of course, the place is haunted. So you know, if I'm on vacation and there's a haunted place in the area, I'm gonna go. Which is the main reason we went to New Orleans in the first place, because the whole city is haunted. And I had some experiences there, but they're not part of this video. So, we're at Humus House, and we had already gone on the ghost tour of the interior, which was extremely interesting, a great deal of fun. And I didn't realize it till after I got home and looked at my photos that I caught in a single picture, not just one ghost, but 2. And if you want to see that video, it's here. But don't click right now. Wait till after this video is over, and it'll also be in the, what do you call it, screen, the end screen that comes up. It'll be one of the video recommendations in that. So that video recounts my other paranormal experience at Huma's house. So trust me, it is well worth the visit if you go with an open mind and keep your wits about you. So here we are. We had enjoyed the ghost tour. It was great, uneventful. And then we had lunch in a cafe there at Huma's house. It's a little bit pricey, but the food was amazing. You do get what you pay for. So then afterwards, we decide to wander the grounds. And they have a beautiful Japanese garden there. And we were walking across a bridge. There's a koi pond there. And it's just absolutely stunning. And of course, I was taking lots of pictures. And we were having a great time. And from the building, during the tour, I kept seeing this small side building, kind of roundish shaped, and it was cream colored, like cream colored stucco on the outside with some small windows. And I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. You know, it just looked kind of odd, looked a bit out of place. And so when we were done with the tour, we went and walking around, we went near that odd shaped little building. And as we were walking toward it, the ground began to get kind of like unkept, which was strange because the entire area was absolutely pristine. It was gorgeous there. And I was just like, oh man, they're not taking care of it over here. And it's so close to the main house. I don't know why they wouldn't have this part, you know, all prettied up like the rest of the area. And we continue to walk toward this strange little building. The nearer we got to the building, the more difficult it became for me to breathe. And I never thought to ask my husband if he had trouble breathing. I regret that to this day. I should have asked him at the time. But I just thought, oh, it's allergies. I have bad allergies, and any length of time outside, like right now, is going to result in some symptoms. Prior to this video, I took my nasal sprays. So then, as we approach the building, now at this point, we're about maybe, I want to say 100 feet away, and you can start to tell this little building is not kept up. It's a little run down. That's when I noticed the sky. It had been a bright, sunny, cloudless sky when we arrived at Huma's house. And after we got on the tour, after we had lunch, I'd say it was a good 2 to 2.5 hours spent there prior to walking the grounds. There was no change in the weather. The weather remained constant. The temperature remained constant. But as I said, it became increasingly difficult for me to breathe as we got closer to this building. I was blaming my allergies. And that's when I saw the sky start to shift. And it went from bright, not a cloud in the sky, beautiful blue sky, to this kind of murky bluish gray, like it's going to start to rain. Now, if you're in the deep south, if it's about to start to rain, the humidity, it's always humid here. I mean, I live in Houston. It's almost always humid here. But the humidity when it's about to rain, it gets really humid. I mean, you feel it. You can walk around and your clothes almost start to feel damp. You know, it's icky. Didn't feel that there. And we should have. And I thought, that's kind of odd. It looks like rain. And I even remarked to my husband, it looks like rain. And he's looking around and goes, yeah, it does, doesn't it? It didn't look like this 5 minutes ago. And I'm like, yeah, it's weird. So went toward the building. And that's when I noticed it was all just worn down. Nothing special about it. I figured some sort of a fancy tool shed, perhaps, to keep up the grounds. Maybe it's where the groundskeeper kept all of their equipment. I don't know. But they had windows there low to the ground on the other side of the building. I actually walked all the way around the building. My husband followed me. And so there's this window there. And I go to look in, figuring it's going to be some sort of a shed, you know? So I look in, and what I see is the sidewall to my left. I remember it's a small roundish building. On the sidewall to my left, there's a mantle and a fireplace. It looked really old. It was completely run down. There was no furniture in there, but there was like a bunch of beams laying across the floor, and I don't know if those beams came from that one small building or if they were put in there from a different part of the property, but there were torn up beams on the floor. and there was a lot of dirt, a lot of dust. The window itself was really, really dirty. It was difficult to see through it, and I had to kind of shift my view a bit to see between the grime to see what was in there. And I was telling my husband, oh, it's just some sort of a tool shed. There's a bunch of crap in here. There's beams on the ground, and it just looks, you know, like a really beat up little place that hadn't been restored or anything. And he's like, oh, okay, let's keep going. You know, I figured it was no big deal. It was a shed, obviously. So we turn around to walk away from that building. As my husband and I began to walk away from the building, suddenly the atmosphere began to shift again. And I noticed the further we got away from that little building, the easier it became for me to breathe. And the sky above was becoming bluer and bluer, like it was when we first arrived. And I remember looking around going, this is really weird. And I said to my husband, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And he starts looking up and he's like, yeah, I guess whatever was blowing in is now blowing out. That's what we both assumed, right? So we went about our self-guided tour of the grounds. We left and came home. We thought, no big deal, right? Well, a few weeks later, I'm telling a friend of mine all about Huma's house and how she's got to go. And, you know, she lives here in Houston too, and her and her husband like to go to New Orleans. And so she was like, oh yeah, we'll have to go check it out too, you know. And then she calls me later in the day and she says, hey, did you go to the Turtle Bar? I'm like, the Turtle Bar? And I said, no, is that in Darrow specifically? And she's like, no, it's right there on the grounds of Huma's house. I'm like, the Turtle Bar? I said, what is it? She says, it's a bar. They serve drinks there. And I'm like, really? Where's it at Huma's house? I figured it was inside the main building somewhere, and we just didn't see it, you know. I mean, it's a huge place. And she says, it's in a side building. It's a really cool little round building that looks like it's white. And I'm like, wait, what? And she says, yeah, you know, she says, here, I'll text you the link. Check it out. I said, okay. So she texts me the link. I click on it, and I about have a heart attack. It's that same building my husband and I saw, that same rundown, derelict little side building. I'm like, wait, no, we were just there. This can't be the same place. And I thought, no, you know, I told her, no, you know what I think this is? I think they have plans to do that. And so what you're looking at is an artist's rendering or whatever of what they plan to turn this little building into. And she says, no, they have their hours of operation here. And I'm like, what? And I look further at the link and I'm like, oh my God, that website made it look like this little side building was not only beautiful inside and out, because they had pictures, but it was a place of business. It was the Turtle Bar, affiliated with Huma's house, because it's right there on the grounds. So it had the same owner. And I'm just like, no, no, this does not compute. I mean, my brain felt like it did a somersault in my head. Seriously. I was so freaked out, and I could not wait for my husband to get home from work. So he comes home, and I'm like, you will not believe what I found out today. He's like, what is it? 'Cause I'm always telling him, you won't believe, because so many weird things happen to me, right? And I mentioned that place, and he says, oh, so they're about to open? I'm like, no, they've been open. It's an active bar. They serve people drinks there. And he's like, wait a minute. You went up to the window and looked in. You said it was all run down. Now, unfortunately, my husband never looked in the window. He told me I was being weird at the time. And he didn't want to look. And there was no reason for me to make him look, you know. So I was like, okay, fine. And we continued our walk. I regret to this day that I never had him look in the window. And I'm left to wonder, would he have seen the same interior that I saw? Or would he have seen the view of an active bar serving customers? I don't know. Another thing I wonder, and of course this was something my husband brought up to me, as I was there peering through the window, trying to see so hard between the streaks of grime on the glass, it being an active place of business, were there customers and employees inside there looking out at me going, who is this weird woman? I don't know, because there was no one in that room. No one. I had already been in email contact with Mr. Kelly about the 2 ghosts I caught in a photograph. I had sent him a copy of that photograph in email, and the discussion of that is in my other video. That's here, but remember, don't check it until you've finished with this one. And I asked him, is this building actually an active bar? And I told him what I saw when I looked in the window, and he emailed me back and he says, I'm quite perplexed. I cannot explain to you what you saw, but whatever it is that you saw does not exist there right now. Yes, I restored that building, and yes, it's a bar today, but what you saw isn't what people see today. So what did I see? Time slip. It had 3 of the classic characteristics: a change in the atmosphere, a change in the coloring of the sky, and then the actual seeing something out of time, something that should not be there at that moment. So what do you think happened? And why do you think it happened at all? You have to remember, on the ghost tour we had taken about 90 minutes prior, I caught 2 ghosts in 1 photograph, but I was unaware of that at the time. Could the ghosts have caused that to happen? One final farewell to the weird lady from Houston? I don't know. Can ghosts cause time slips to occur? Maybe a ghost is a time slip. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. So I thank you very much for watching. I am Neferkefri, your hostess with the ghostess, and I'm wishing you a very blessed day ahead.